Hi. I just finished reading Oyasumi Punpun, and it was so wonderfully depressing. Hi, I'm Bayfond, and this manga by Ino Sano is a fucking masterpiece. I first heard about this manga about 5 years ago, and I've been putting this manga on hold for about the last 5 years. That's because all I've ever heard about this manga is about how depressing it is. How you should be ready to be broken the second that you read it, because there are scenes in this that are completely horrible to the main characters. And well, that's not a lie, to be honest. But I would say it definitely didn't get me to exhibit the emotions of, like terror or fear or make me break out crying. It was more of pity and sympathy that I had for these characters because of the circumstance that the characters are in, mainly our protagonist, Punpun, and how these situations just further fracture his mind and just lead him down the worst paths he can take. Our main character looks like this. His name's Punpun. He's a bird. This is probably one of the most iconic character designs in all of seinen mangas because of what he represents. He's not supposed to look like a person that you can humanize and try to relate to. He's a bird. And sometimes he's not just a bird. He turns into a prism. He turns into a whole assortment of other things that show in what state of his progression he's in. And when the situations get dark, they do get dark. I'm gonna say they don't get to the point of violence of maybe the whole sacrifice of the band of the hawk. But it feels to that level of pain. You can recoil at certain scenes because you notice, oh fuck, this is going down and this is definitely gonna have a ripple later down in the future. Actions that characters take have serious effects on the entire story. And I would say there are 3 things that this story does amazingly well. Number 1 is how it shows the internal monologue of a character that is completely unreliable. So, Punpun is our central focal point that we see this entire world of. And, well, since you already know that this is a depressing manga, it's not a spoiler to say that this is a depressed kid. His entire mentality is focused on, low self-esteem and, hating himself in general. So all that we see is his internal dialogue and what he thinks about himself and what his actions represent. So we only see a sliver of what is truly happening around him. Unless, of course, we get glimpses of what's happening around when we get chapters and pages dedicated to the supporting cast, like his mom, his dad, and the various love interests that come into his life as well. And I would say it just feels so real. Of course, I hope that not everyone in the world is such a cynical sadist and just hates themselves at all times. But when you're in that mindset, this is almost exactly how it feels to view oneself. And it's articulated in such a way that it makes sense how he's going down this path or why it's happening. And even though he's a protagonist, you don't want to root for him for a lot of the scenes that are going on. Sure, you want him to get better and you want the situation to just overall lighten up, but sometimes the actions that are done in this manga are completely unredeemable. And number 2, in what it does really well, is I would say how it really shows off its themes and metaphors that go on into the story. So basically, there are some characters in this that are stand-ins for certain ideas, beliefs, whatever you want to call it. There's God in this, there's cults in this, and there's Punpun the bird. They represent a whole wide array of several different things, like how this can go in depth to maybe opinions on what the meaning of life could be and what it should be, what it truly means to be a human being, the differences of losing one's innocence when you're a kid to when you're turning into an adult. So many subjects are tackled in this one story that it's a perfect accumulation of everything and just a grim, sadistic version of it. The story grabs you and it takes hold the entire time. You don't want to let go because you're already invested in all of these characters' personal lives and shit. You already know that there's going to be a downward spiral coming for all of these characters. You just want to know how it happens and you can't take your eyes away. I've seen a lot of reviews of Oyasumi Punpun and they've all said oh, it's not an enjoyable read. What the fuck does that mean? This is probably one of the most enjoyable reads I've had in a long time. Just because something is so dark and depressing doesn't mean that it can't be enjoyable. Sure, you might not be rooting for the characters and the situations might not be pleasant altogether, but it feels like you're gaining something from reading this story. It feels like there's so many layers that this thing wants to tell you that you want to uncover yourself. All of these elements are what make this story so popular in today's culture. If it wasn't an enjoyable read, then no one would want to read it. I feel like to some degree, people are going to relate to these characters. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've done. I guarantee 90% of the people reading this haven't gone through situations that involve anything that happens to Punpun, but you can still understand where he's coming from or maybe see a situation and go, well, it's pretty similar to something that you've been in. And I'm not talking about like the deep, dark, depressing ones. It could be the ones like his everyday life when he's a kid. There are aspects in this story which are, I think, universally relatable, even though the story tries its damnedest not to be. And then I would say the third thing that it does exceptionally well is give you false hope. It's such a tease when it shows you the potential of something good happening to the characters. Because in your head, you obviously know, again, that there's a downward spiral incoming, but you just want these moments to last forever for these characters. They deserve at least some moment of rest coming into their lives to get over the past that they've had to endure. But then once again, what happens? We're thrown right back into the action. It keeps you just on your toes at all times. At the heart of it, Punpun is a cautionary tale. Of what? Well, you decide. There are so many things that you can just pull from and say like, hey, it's a cautionary tale of infatuation on a single person. It's a cautionary tale about making bad decisions. It's a cautionary tale about fucking existing. It can be anything. The story even has this moment where you see that it's a generational thing. Every generation is going to experience it to some degree, the pain of the real world. And this collective pain and hurt is something that everyone's going to go through. Of course, maybe not to the level of Punpun. I would say read this story no matter what. I put it off for way too long. And if you're squeamish, yeah, definitely. It's gonna be a hard read, but I'd still recommend it. The only thing I would say is like if you're a kid or something like that, don't try to read this yet. You can definitely enjoy it, but you're probably not gonna enjoy it all the way. I think for whatever reason, the story wants you to be at least a little bit jaded when you go into it. And Asano's depressing stories, yeah, these are his niche. He's got this completely covered. This man knows how to write a wonderfully dreadful story. And something that happened pretty recently is he just had a divorce from his wife, which is all around awful, but just be on the lookout for another deep dive on the human psyche. And so, I'm Bayfond. See you guys next time when, I promise you, I'm actually gonna talk about something that's actually gonna be lighthearted. Peace.